Good morning, everyone, and happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining us today. I hope that everyone is excited to learn how they can create a community landscape that rocks. We have some great information for you today and some great giveaways, so I'll jump right into introductions and then we'll get started. Add some more. My name is Jesus Azanza. I'm the Executive Director for the Greater Houston chapter of CAI. As an organization that exists to serve community association professionals and volunteer leaders, we're excited what is now our 10th webinar of the year. And oh, what a year it's been, right? I'd like to first start by saying thank you to our sponsor, Alliance Association Bank. Sabina Holton is with us today to introduce her company and how they can help you with your banking needs. Sabina, it's all you.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. I thank you, Jesus, for allowing me to sponsor this program. My name's Sabina. As Jesus said, I'm with Alliance Association Bank. We are a division of Western Alliance Bank Corporation. We've been rated in the Forbes Best Banks of America list for 5 years in a row now. We specialize in homeowner association banking. We pride ourselves in excellent customer services. We're also very proud of our technology and how our live connection API with most of the popular software companies allows for the user to do all of their banking tasks directly through the softwares. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to my current customers out there for your business. We really, really appreciate you, and we look forward to continued success and helping both of us succeed. And I also look forward to the new relationships in the Southern Texas region and helping you also be successful along with us. Be sure and contact me if you'd like to see a demo. My information is up there, and of course, I'm out there in CAI. You can find me on CAI, and thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a great seminar.
Thanks, Sabine. We appreciate that. And I'd just like to mention Alliance Association Bank is a gold premium partner of our chapter, which is an annual sustaining partnership. And so their investment is what allows us to offer programming like this at no cost to the membership. So thank you, Sabina.
Thank you.
Today, we have two companies who will be talking a lot about landscaping and a lot about lawn care. We have with us Brooke Mars and the Earth Care Management team. Earth Care Management is one of our bronze premium partners, and Brooke is co-chair of our Take a Manager to Lunch committee. The other presenter with us today is Brent Dillon, who is president of Techscape Services, a member of our education committee. And if you've attended our gala in the past year or two, you will recognize them from the amazingly constructed floral feature at the entrance. That's pretty awesome. So thank you both for putting this presentation together. Housekeeping items real quick. This presentation is being recorded and will be distributed to the group afterwards and posted to our YouTube channel. This course also qualifies for 1 CE credit, and we will send out the certificate as a reference afterwards. We're going to let the presenters do their thing first, and at the end, we will go through a Q&A session, so feel free to submit your questions via the chat feature, and we'll answer as many as we can. After that, we'll get to the real reason why you're all here. It's for $50 gift cards. We've got 4 of them we're giving away, courtesy of our sponsor and presenters, and those are open to HOA managers and community volunteer leaders. All right, Brooke, we will start with you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you, Jesus, for giving us the opportunity to speak today. Y'all can hear me, right? Yes? Okay. I'm Brooke Mars. I am an account manager and a sales associate for Earth Care Management. I also have with me a whole team of people today because we believe at Earth Care that it takes a true team to make every community look beautiful and operate so smoothly. So we have Julia today with us. She is the head of sales and design. We have Stephen Galvin, who is our irrigation manager. And then it says Kenny, but Kenny had a previous commitment. So we have Andreas Sanchez. He is our chemical manager and an account manager as well. So I'm going to turn this over to Stephen, and he's going to go through some commonly asked irrigation questions.
Good morning, everyone. Are y'all going to move the slide? There we go. Okay. First question is, what is a zone? Basically, a zone is an individual valve that covers a section. Normally, that section is going to be normally like a pop head, pop up with sprays. Oh, can you go to the next slide, please, Jesus? Okay, so yeah, it's a section of irrigation that's controlled by a single valve. And in that valve, you'll typically have similar heads, like one valve will be rotors, one will be spray, maybe bubbler valve. We try to keep the same type of irrigation with the same zone. In this, you'll see this is a controller with, I think it's like 112 zones, typically how the layout is. The next question is, how many sprinkler heads are in a zone? That's a pretty open-ended question. It just depends on what size that valve is. So typically commercial, you'll have like a 1-inch valve, 1.5-inch valve, or a 2-inch valve. And on a 1-inch valve, you can have up to 6 rotors, maybe more, maybe less. 1.5-inch valve, maybe 10 rotors. And so on 2-inch valve, obviously it'll be more. Sometimes it'll be, I've seen up to 16 rotors on a 2-inch valve. So you can go to the next slide, please. What parts break in a pop-up head? Okay, typically what I see is 2 different parts that break on the pop-ups. Over time, you'll see that wiper seal right there. That wiper seal will deteriorate over time because it's rubber and there's water. Plus, you get little pebbles inside there that'll start to basically scar the riser. And over time, it going up and down, water will start leaking through that seal. And then another part that will go bad over time is that spring. Once that spring goes bad, that head won't go back down. So you'll see a pop-up, it's not running, but the pop-up's still up. That's because that spring has gone down or is broken. And what happens is a lawnmower will run over that head, not seeing that it's still up. And then basically you get those complaints about geysers. I always get geyser complaints. Water shooting up in the air. So yeah, typically on the pop-ups, you'll see the seal go bad, water start leaking, and that spring will just break over time and become weaker, and the pop-up won't go down anymore. Okay, stuck valve. There's a lot of reasons valves will get stuck. Typically, there's 3 common reasons. Just starting off, that diaphragm you see right there is a rubber piece, and it's sitting in water for years and years, and over time it'll dry rot and weaken. But let's see, sorry, I lost my. So sometimes you'll get a little piece of dirt or a pebble, or even a little piece of PVC that was left in there during the installation or repair. And that PVC will run through the main, and it'll get into the valve. And when that valve tries to close, it'll prevent it from closing because that dirt's in there, and that diaphragm won't seal on the diaphragm seat. So that's one reason, is dirt in the valve. The second one is just time. Like I was saying, that diaphragm's rubber. Over time, it deteriorates, dry rots, and doesn't create a good seal anymore. And the third reason is, a lot of times it's electrical as well. You got that solenoid right there, and sometimes that solenoid just goes bad over time and it won't close. And also, I've seen decoders go bad as well. They'll short out and they'll stay in that open position, and the valve will just continue to run and leak. Speaking of decoders, I think decoders is the next slide. Okay, why do decoders go bad? I'm sure y'all all get complaints or something about a decoder. If you're in commercial, you've seen decoders on your list. So decoders are an electrical component that always receive current. Even when the controller's not running, that decoder has current going through it. And a lot of the time it's in a valve box underwater. They have waterproof connections that are supposed to be waterproof, but not all the time. I've seen them have a little bit of water, a little bit of moisture in that wire connection, and your decoder will short out because that's constant current is always going through there. So yeah, just water in your connections will cause that decoder to not work anymore, and it'll short it out. And sometimes when you get that short, it'll make your controller not work as well. So then you got to go and replace, or you got to find that decoder that's bad with the controller being off. Let's see. Also, decoders. Oh, sorry. Decoders. I've installed decoders plenty of times. I've installed a decoder brand new, and then the following day I'll go back out there and that decoder is no longer working. So, I mean, sometimes it's the manufacturer as well. They don't do something right in the manufacturing process and they will go bad. But they typically have a pretty good warranty on the decoders, the manufacturers do. So in that case, the warranty, they should be covered by warranty and you can replace them under warranty. I think that's about it.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Andres, and I'm the chemical manager here at Earth Care Management. And this morning, we're going to talk about best practices you can do to beautify your community. And one of the many things that you do look at when you do drive community is the turf areas. So let's talk a little bit about common turf weeds in the spring and summer months. Some of the major weeds that affect your common turf species, which is generally Bermuda turf and your St. Augustine turf, are grassy weeds such as crabgrass and Dallas grass and nutsedge. If you can please switch to the next slide, sir. First weed that you will generally notice in the spring through summer seasons is the crabgrass weed. This weed is very invasive. It's a grassy weed. And generally you have two types of crabgrass that you deal with in both turf species, which is your smooth crabgrass and the large crabgrass. The difference is the smooth crabgrass it tends to spread to the left and to the right, while the large crabgrass grows upwards. Both versions of the crabgrass tend to germinate once temperatures start to hover over 85 degrees. So best practice you can do to control those grassy weeds is to apply a pre-emergent before the temperatures start to go up. Typically, like in February is the time zones that you want to apply a pre-emergent herbicide. The next weed that you find to be common in both turf species is the Dallas grass weed. Very difficult to control weed. Best practice you can do to keep it under control is to keep your lawn well fertilized. That way it can choke out not only the grassy weeds, your broadleaf weeds as well. You want to stay consistent also with your mowings, because if you let this grass grow, once that from what you see from the picture, you see that seed head has a lot of small seeds. So if you were to mow it once it's fully mature, those seeds will spread, and that's how you'll get you'll see a lot more clumps of this Dallas grassy weed. So it's very difficult to control. You have to go out and apply a spot treatment for these weeds to suppress it, because it's very hard to control. The next weed that you will encounter commonly throughout both turf species as well is your nutsedge. And there's actually two kinds. The yellow and the purple nutsedge. So on the slide here, you have the yellow nutsedge. The difference, you know it by the seed head. This color of the seed head that you see on the picture, it's yellow. So this is yellow nutsedge. The purple, it's actually purple from the actual seed head. So there's not really any herbicide out in the market today that can prevent any nutsedge. You have to actually treat it as you see it. And the good news is about controlling nutsedge, that there are several products out in the market that we use to control it, because it's a invasive weed, so it has rhizomes, you know, so underneath the soil, there's basically stems, just like it has stems that grow over the top of the surface of the soil. There are stems that grow underneath, and they're intertwined with other stems, so that makes it very difficult to control. Next week, we're going to talk about also our common turf weeds that you encounter in the fall through winter, such as your clover broadleaf weed, aster weed, clumpy rye, and chickweeds. Let's start off with clover. Clover, if Jesus, if you could switch over to the next slide, please. Clover is pretty easy to control. You generally find it growing through the months of December through February. Typically, both turf grass species are dormant during this time of year, both St. Augustine and Bermuda. So you'll notice it brown throughout, but you will notice these weeds pop out in clumps and spots at a time, and it just makes the property look so terrible. So, but the good thing is, the good news we got this morning is that there are products out on the market that are very effective in controlling this weed species. It's very easy to control. It's just a matter of getting a contact-based herbicide and just basically spraying over the top will give you the best measure of control for this weed. Also, you want to make sure you keep your grass, your turf, both turf species healthy. And again, that if the more you fertilize, the more you stay on top of your fertilization, the healthier your turf will be. And when it comes to weed invasions, it'll be a lot more stronger. You want to generally make sure on your fertilizer, on your either granular or liquid applications, to make sure your potassium level on the NPK, which is on the three main nutrients that you need in a turf fertilizer to get the grass looking great, is the third number, which is potassium. You want to make sure that number is high, especially this time of year when you do actually put it down. That way it gives the turf enough strength to build up for spring. The next weed we're going to talk about is the aster weed. Aster weed, typically you'll see it between January and February. The only deal with this weed is that once you treat it, you will still see the stems. The stems will be very visible. It's very thick weed. It's a broadleaf weed, very easy to control as well. But it's very invasive. So if you don't treat it on time, it can quickly spread throughout your turf areas, and it'll make the property look very bad. Just like the clover broadleaf weed. Another cool season weed that you will see throughout certain communities is the clumpy rye. It's a winter. It's considered to be a winter season grassy weed. And it's very similar to the Pawana or the annual bluegrass that pops out during the cool season. So this particular grassy weed will pop out in clumps. And the only way you could get the best control on this weed is by coming out with a selective herbicide and generally just kind of spot treating it wherever you see it popping up. That's the best control you can have when it comes to applying a post-emergent. Now, there are pre-emergents out in the market today that if you were to apply it, especially this time of year, you want to do it in September before these weeds even germinate to become full-grown weeds. Right when the seed is set, your pre-emergent will be put down in September to get the best possible control. You won't even see these clumps if you do it on the right time frame. So you want to make sure your pre-emergent is put down in September-ish, around there on through the mid-October. Otherwise, you will have to come back out and spot treat for these clumps of grassy weeds. Another cool season weed that you will see is known as the the chickweed, which is a broadleaf weed, very easy to control, but it's very invasive, such as the clover. So it can easily take over your lawn areas. If you do not treat at the right time, it can easily spread throughout certain parts of your lawn. So you want to make sure you apply a contact-based post-emergent herbicide to get the best possible control for this weed. You can also apply a pre-emergent for this weed and many other weeds. Pre-emergent can control during the cool season. So you want to make sure you apply your pre-emergents twice a year, at least one for your actively growing weeds from spring through summer, and you apply that usually like in March, February to March. And then for your cool season weeds, you want to, like I said before, you want to apply it like in September, mid-October the latest. If you go back in December, try to apply pre-emergent, it will not work because the grassy weed or broadleaf weed will be fully mature. You want to make sure you apply it at the right time. On the next slide, you will find certain insects, pests that really can affect your lawn area during the growing season. And I'm pretty sure you've encountered these issues in spring through summer. Let's talk a little bit about the chinch bug, which is a common pest in turf. Chinch bugs are usually active usually between May through July. They like it where it's hot. You will notice, especially along the hardscape areas where the concrete areas radiate heat, that's where you will see burnt spots in your lawn. This is caused by the chinch bug. So best possible control you can have for this insect is coming back and applying a contact insecticide. There are many out in the market today that we use for the control of this particular insect, but it can really cause some damage. And typically, if you do have damage from this particular insect, you literally have to come back and replace that grass because they can damage the grass very, very severely. The good news we got going on for this insect is that it takes a while for them to create some sort of damage, but you don't want them to enlarge those patches. So as soon as you see these patches, you want to come back with that contact insecticide. The next insect I want to talk about is the white grub. Jesus, if you could switch over to the next slide, please. Yes, the white grub. So typically the white grub it's found in your turf areas. Typically, if you see 3 to 4 white grubs per square foot, that means you have a terrible white grub infestation. You want to come back and do a systemic, not a contact-based insecticide. You want to do a systemic that translocates through the soil because these white grubs are actually underneath the soil, tearing up the root system of your turf grass, either St. Augustine or Bermuda. And the way you see it on the picture, you can literally pull, when you know you have a white grub infestation, you can literally pull the turf grass right up off the soil with the root system intact. You can pull it back like if it was a carpet. That's how bad the infestation can get. So you need to come back and apply systemic insecticide for the best possible control for this insect. Another common insect that you also notice, especially between the months of, I'm going to say July on through October, is the webworm. Typically, the webworm, you will see signs of damage, such as the damage caused by, similar to that of the chinch bug. But the most quickest sign that you have webworms is when you do walk through a certain turf area, you'll see white moths fly up in the air, and typically that's a sign. That's the mature form of the webworm. The webworm is actually the actual larvae. The larvae that are actually, from what you see on the left side of this picture here, is tearing up your lawn areas. Whether it's Bermuda, they like Bermuda species, they like St. Augustine, they tear up either turf species. So you need to come back with the contact insecticide to get the best possible control for this insect species. And if usually they're pretty easy to control. If you stay on top of your applications, you might have to do a second app. Sometimes we do a third app, but usually if they come in contact with insecticide, they die immediately. They're very evasive, just like the armyworm. They kind of look similar, except the difference is the color on the armyworm, you'll see a Y on its forehead, and armyworms usually start to invade usually like this time of year. Last year we had it was just a bad, terrible infestation throughout. I'm not going to say just our community. I'm going to say many other communities out there that were damaged by the fall armyworm. So that should. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I will pass it on.
Thank you guys so much and I'm going to pass it over to Brant now. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Great job, you guys. Can you hear me all right? Okay, good deal. Just wanted to piggyback just a little bit on what the professionals at EarthCare were talking about. You know, you guys make sure that all reputable landscape companies hold a Texas irrigator's license and a commercial pesticide applicator's license. And so when you're looking for landscape maintenance companies that are taking care of your communities, you know, make sure they hold those licenses. If they don't hold the license, then they're not going to be able to access the chemicals to treat these problems, and you're just going to kind of not get anywhere with some of the over-the-counter type stuff at Home Depot. So anyway, my name's Brant Dillon. I'm the president of Techscape Services, a commercial landscape maintenance, irrigation installation company. We just focus on HOAs and multifamily communities and some commercial centers. So you guys have had a lot of information. I know in the previous webinar, there was you know, some other landscape companies that provided some very valuable information. And so I want to use this opportunity to maybe kind of simplify everything for you guys that are running these communities. Hang on, let me fix my thing here. Okay. Because it's hard to keep up with all the different types of weeds and insects and the irrigation problems and what do I need to do with my trees and drainage problems. And it's a whole lot to ask a community manager to you know, be on top of these things and understand what's going on, in addition to the multitude of other things you guys have to handle with managing not just one community, but generally a portfolio of them. So I think that I want to talk about the scope of work and frequency of services. Okay, and the scope of work it's a written agreement between the customer and the contractor that outlines and describes all the work that's going to be done over the course of the year and how often. And so you know, there is it's very important to have this so that you know how many visits you're going to get, how many irrigation audits you're going to get, or how many flower changes, fertilizations, pre-emergent applications, post-emergent applications, etc. Right? So when you're requesting these, sending out RFPs to multiple companies, you need to make sure that all the scope of work are apples to apples, and so that you're comparing the same thing. Next slide, Jesus. So why is that important? It clearly defines expectations. It lets the community know exactly what is included in the contract, what aspects of the landscape that we're going to be taking care of as a part of your monthly expenditure, and then what things are outside of the contract as far as, you know, general improvements and enhancements and things. Not all communities are the same. You got some communities with you know, larger home values and more amenities and outdoor space, community areas that, you know, your residents are using, you know, daily all year. And communities like that, they may need more visits. Some communities may want, you know, ryegrass in the winter. Some may be struggling financially and not need all those things. The type of grass, the type of landscape, some of that determines how many visits that you really need in the course of the year. And we'll get into that a little further. And not all contractors are the same. Some contractors have base maintenance that, maybe it's mow, edge, weed eat, blow, trim the plants, and spray for weeds. And maybe that's it. And you may see their scope of work, and maybe they're several $1,000s cheaper, but their scope maybe doesn't include pre-emergence and post-emergence and fertilizations and irrigation audits and ant and disease and pest control and different things like that. So don't assume that when you're receiving multiple proposals for your property that it's apples to apples. So make sure that you're reading that stuff closely and making sure that you get the same number of visits and included services. So basic service examples, okay? Every contract should mow, they should edge around the flat work, we should weed eat, they should blow, clean up everything, right? The shrubs should be neatly trimmed monthly. Sometimes, in our case, we do them once a month, and we do half of the property half of the property each visit. You can a quarter of the property each visit. If you wanted 2 trims, you could do half the property. Should clean up all their debris, redefine and turn beds. I have an asterisk there. That's a practice that's debatable on whether it's a good practice and healthy for the material. But I do believe that redefining beds and fluffing the mulch periodically, not turning the dirt on top of the mulch, but just fluffing a little bit gives you a little bit of a fresher look, and maybe can extend out a month or 2 on when you need your next mulch installation. Weed control, beds and turf is very important. This stuff is included. I've noticed, there's a lot of frequency charts, basic frequency charts. They don't include the fertilization in the pre-emergence and post-emergence. And I think those things should just be included and not something that needs to really be line itemed and that you guys should have to worry about. Insect and disease control should generally be a basic service that's included in a contract. I think that there's a basic plant health care program that most communities can follow that will control your insects and disease. Sometimes, in some cases, maybe it's gotten out of control from just previous deferred maintenance, and so there may be some extra work involved. But I'm of the opinion that professional landscape companies should include these basic preventative measures. Irrigation audits. There you go. Irrigation audits. Quarterly, monthly, it just depends on the property and what you desire and the needs are. But I do believe that you should receive full audits on your irrigation system. That way you always know the condition of it, what's wrong with it, and what it's going to cost to make the repairs so that your system's 100% operational. It's very important that your soil has the nutrients it needs and your irrigation is working well. Because that's a great preventative step from disease and pests and weeds and things. And small trees over walkways and parking. These are some basic things that should be included. Limit up trees, to 8 or 10 feet so that you're not creating situations where maybe you're liable. Someone's walking on a sidewalk and get hit in the eye by a tree limb or whatnot. So those are some basic services that I would be looking for to make sure that your landscape maintenance contractors have included in their base price. Okay, go ahead, Jesus, next slide. Extra services. So we talked about what is generally basic and should just be included in a maintenance contract in its simplest form. Some of these other things here, these extra service examples, I like these included in the contract per the customer's request, but these are some examples of some things that nearly all communities do. Okay, so you're going to want your flowers. We'll talk about the frequency of that a little later. So there's flower changes. Some people Some communities prefer that expense outside of the contract. Some communities prefer that expense in the contract, so that's just one monthly fee over the course of the contract, and it's easier to budget that way. Mulch, I recommend mulch twice a year, once at minimum. So that's something that you guys should really consider. And again, you can put it in the contract, spread the expense out over the course of a year, makes it easier to budget. Of course, irrigation repairs, you guys should always have some money set aside for irrigation repairs. The gentleman at Earth Care talked about it. They're primarily rubber and plastic parts, and they just break. It's just, it just happens. They wear out and they break. So you should have some money set aside monthly. You can talk with your landscape contractor and maybe it's hard to predict, what the expenses will be. But I think that most of us have enough historical data over the years that we can get a general idea of a number that you maybe need to budget for that. Winter ryegrass application. There's a couple variations of ryegrass that you can install. Usually goes down overseeded in October. I like to put it, now really, so that ours comes up first. So I like to be a little early on it, but that keeps your grass really green over the winter, November through February, and then it just burns out on its own as temperatures rise. One thing about winter ryegrass application is that if you're not going to extend the number of visits to 48 visits, you might consider using a perennial ryegrass, which is a little more expensive, but it grows slower because when you're going a couple of weeks before visits in the winter, that annual ryegrass gets pretty tall. You've probably seen stains on your flat work, or when the landscapers are mowing it, leaving just clumps of cut grass behind. So tree trimming, a lot of our clients like their tree trimming included in their contract. So, when we bid our projects, we walk around in advance, look for, problems with the trees. We get the lump sum price and just put it in the contract. And again, you can spread that amount over the course of the year. Kitty cushion is another service that, you guys, if you have playgrounds that require kitty cushion, just include that stuff in the contract, and then you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to run your landscape contractor down. You just show up one day and it's done. Community trash can, dog station service, it's pretty self-explanatory. And then top dress and narration or verticut, et cetera. There's some more, I've seen we maintain some sports fields where the scope of work is pretty detailed with the top dressing and different things, but that generally doesn't apply too much. So, okay, let me. All right, so scope of work, frequency of services, okay? So I really like to just keep it simple here. We talked about the things that should be included in the basic service. So you're gonna need your mow, edge, weeding, blow, and trim the plants, and spray for weeds, deadhead the flowers, the pre-emergent, the post-emergent, 3 or 4 fertilization applications for the turf, a couple for the shrubs. In the base contract, we're checking for ants and treating as needed, and any type of aphids or scale or ornamental plant and tree pests taken care of. And then, so you got 42 visits that includes all that, mulch times 1 annually, and flowers times 3. So this is a very common contract that we have. It's the 42 visits is weekly from March through the end of October. So that's the prime growing season. The contractor should be coming weekly during that time. And then when we get into November, it goes to bi-weekly, and it's every other week as things cool down and they go dormant. So, and then the mulch times 1, generally in February or in November, mulch your entire property. And then the color times 3. We do have some properties that prefer 4 color changes, but down here in Houston, you know, I think that you can get plenty of curb appeal and pop with just 3 color changes. Early spring, summer, and then fall, winter. A next really common contract is 48 visits, which gives you obviously 6 more visits than the 42 visit contract. Your mulch times 1, your flowers times 3 annually, and then the ryegrass times 1. And I have the 48 visits because of the ryegrass. So you install the ryegrass, oversee with the ryegrass. It's growing tall. You know, really need to be coming weekly during that prime growing season of the winter ryegrass. But like I said, you can get away with the 42 visits using a perennial ryegrass. Another real common contract is the 42 visits, the mulch times 1, flowers times 2. Okay, so you can get away with a couple flower changes if you're looking to try to save some expenses on your property. Generally, those flowers will be installed in April and November. So full disclosure about 2 color changes is generally a couple months out of the year. Your flowers are going to look bad. Maybe the beds are empty, but you can get, you know, 10 or 11 months worth of curb appeal pop, so to speak, with the two color changes. But, you know, if you want to get the full year of really good looking flowers, you need 3. And then you have, you know, D, 52 visits. So this is weekly, every week. Mulch times 1, flowers times 3, kitty cushion times 1, ryegrass times 1, and then a full property tree trim. Okay, we kind of call this a Cadillac contract right here. You have a contract like this, you guys really don't need to worry about anything except just making sure that the irrigation system, you know, continues to be maintained and repaired as needed. And then of course you can always add the second mulch in here if you want to, but I think 1 mulch at 3 inches is pretty good for the year. And then of course you'll get, in our case, when we install flowers, we mulch the flower area. So however many color changes you have, that area is getting mulched that many times, and then the rest of your property, the tree wells and all the common areas are getting mulched just once. Okay, next slide, Jesus. All right, so advantages of including all these extra services versus a per occurrence billing structure is frankly, it's 0% financing. The communities get to finance the cost of the mulch over 12 months at 0% interest. And I mean, that's a great deal. It speaks for itself. I could, you know, buy the things in my life at 0% interest for 12 months. I'd finance everything for 12 months. Discounts sometimes, you know, if you're including and you're guaranteeing a certain amount of money for a contract, that landscape contractors will often offer discounts for that. So on top of the no interest financing, you can get even further discounts with that. It's easier to budget. Okay, you know what your monthly expenses are going to be. You don't have to set aside 10, 12, 15, 18,000, however large as the community is. You don't have to set that money aside for tree trimming in 1 month, and you don't have to worry about setting money aside in another month for mulch and 3 other months for color. Just put it all in there. Your monthly expense is X amount of dollars, and it doesn't change. And it's easier to manage for you guys. You don't have to run around and check and make sure that that I remember to get the color. Why hasn't my guy sent me the proposal for the color? It's just in the contract, and you can handle other things and let your professional landscaper take care of the rest. Okay, next one, Jesus. Okay, real quick, we'll talk about color change here. I got about 5 minutes. So why do we spend money on flowers? You know, they don't last very long, and we're constantly replacing them, and it's just this recurring expense all the time. Well, number one, it's curb appeal. People that come home to their communities want to pull into the entrance, and they want to see beautiful seasonal flowers. Personally, it's a celebration of the seasons for me. When we get to install the color, it's bringing on spring, or it's bringing on summer or the fall and the winter. So It definitely adds value. Well-kept communities, homes hold their value and appreciate at a faster clip. They're expected. People expect grand, beautiful entrances to their neighborhoods. It's a fact. They improve our moods. You look at flowers and you instantly just feel better when they're looking good. Now, when you just install some color and they're dying and shriveling up, of course, they probably don't improve your mood. But good, healthy flowers, they do. And you create your own list of reasons. I mean, people are drawn to flowers for a multitude of reasons. So, yeah, pick your own reason. Next one, Jesus. Okay, frequency. How often annually does your community prefer the color change? It's really 0 through 4. Anything else is really unnecessary. I put the asterisk by the 3 because that's what I recommend. On the 0, sometimes you can use some perennial things, some plant material that blooms. You can get it in a 1 gallon or even a 4-inch pot, and and it'll last you forever, and you'll never have to worry about color changes again. But generally, that stuff doesn't add the pop that flowers do. 1 color change is worthless, so 2, 3, or 4, but I would say 3 is the best. Next slide. Design. What's the vision for the area? When the color has matured, it's important that you guys have a good idea of what the design's going to be. Your landscaper lets you know. There's is it going to be tiered? Is it just a mass planting? You need to know, your contractor needs to know that the mature height of the flower, the width of the flower. That's going to determine the spacing. Are they 6 inches apart, 9 inches apart? We don't go any further than 9 inches. The color, is there contrast with the different color? And then the environment, is it shady? Is it wet? Different color does better in different areas. So all that stuff's important. In healthy color, it all starts with the design. Next, Jesus. How many color changes and what seasons will they be required to cover? Right? Spring, summer, fall, and winter. The great thing about our area, well, some say it's great, some hate it, is that, there's really just a spring, summer, and kind of a fall. So that's why I like 3 color changes. We can generally get our fall color that goes in November to last through the spring. So our fall winter color is a combination color change in this area for us, which helps save you guys the expense of a 4th and sometimes unnecessary color change. Next, Jesus. Maintenance. It's real simple. Starts with a good design, soil prep, installation, and material. So you got to have the design right, correct color, spacing, prep the soil, amend it with fertilizer, install it, and make sure the material is healthy. As part of your visits, 42, 48 visits, should have weekly inspections for disease and or pests and treat. Should be any conversation about this. If I install the color, I want the place to look good, and I'm going to treat it. Fertilize it, deadhead, and or cut back when necessary. And you have to monitor the irrigation, especially close in these areas. All right, I think that about wraps it up, and I appreciate it. Great job, Jesus, and a good turnout. And thank you guys. My contact information is there on the slide. So if you have any other questions, you can give me a call or shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to answer for you. I
appreciate Brent, Brooke, and Earth Care team. Appreciate your time and the energy putting this presentation together. I'm going to go right into some questions. We've got a lot of questions, so hopefully we can get through most, if not all of them. And I think we can stick around if we go over a little bit for a post-webinar Q&A. But the first question, Brent, I'm going to toss it over to you. What are some good pre-emergent fertilizer brands?
We actually used a company named Harold, and they mix their own fertilizer. So, you've got, the Scotts and, the different large companies and stuff out there that you see at your stores. But us personally, we use a company called Harold's, and they mix a custom blend for us.
Is there any difference in treatment for Bermuda versus St. Augustine?
Yes, very much. Very much. You when you're fertilizing, and particularly when you're using a combination product, definitely need to read the label and make sure that the turf that you're applying that product on is compatible with it. Otherwise, you risk injuring the turf, burning it, even killing it in some instances. So yes, very important, and it's also very important that when you're dealing with different weeds and things that you're reading the label and using target specific stuff when necessary. Sometimes there's some broad spectrum treatments that'll treat a variety of grasses and weeds, but yes, definitely need different material.
All right, Brooke, Earth Care, I'm going to toss this one over to you. See, what do commercial landscapers look for when trimming tree canopies? Aside from coming into contact with structures, should our HOA look at tree bark color, on the trees, any other identifying factors? Like this has to be tree health, I guess, tree health and safety.
Yes, you want to mainly look for sucker growth. Suckers tend to suck up the health of the tree from it. Actually prevents it from expanding. So you want to make sure the suckers are removed, which is the bottom, the volunteer growth that's coming from the base of a tree. You also want to make sure you prune off any limbs that are intertwining other limbs that'll affect the growth of a tree, and it'll actually thinning the tree will actually let sunlight through. So if you do have turf, certain turf species underneath the canopy of a tree will help that sunlight penetrate. You also want to look for diseases and certain insects that do actually attack trees as well, and treat as you see them, when necessary. Those are basically the practices that we perform when we're out on our projects.
Okay. Next question, let's stick it with Earth Care. This says, we are struggling using organic methods. What are landscaping services offering to help communities practice organic methods in a cost-effective manner? Are landscaping services using a combination of synthetic and organic methods? And if so, how?
Unfortunately, organics are on the market. It's very difficult to find economic products out there because it takes a while to make them. One of the many several vendors that we use and we do business with is San Jacinto Environmental Supplies, and that vendor supplies the famous product called Microlife. And Microlife is 100% organic, and it's one of the many fertilizers that we use when it comes to feeding our plant material and our trees. We also use a lot of their liquid-based organic biostimulants, which are basically liquid fertilizers such as Ocean Harvest and molasses, and some of the ingredients that are in these products are ingredients such as kelp, molasses, humates, just biological, they're biological fertilizers that contain 100% organic amendments in them.
Awesome. Brant, let me ask you this one. This is basically how to implement a xeriscape landscape in an association. Is there a way to do it in a way to do it that doesn't make it look like a desert?
Well, that's a tough question, and that really probably starts with just a really good landscape architect. Generally when you think xeriscape, you think Las Vegas, Arizona, right? Decomposed granite, no turf, cactus, real material that doesn't require a lot of water. So it's tough to really create, a traditional xeriscape, but what you can is create, sort of a hybrid where you incorporate, some traditional aspects of a xeriscape, and then just are selective about your plant choices, so that, the water requirement is not so high. I think the whole idea of a zero-scape is really not so much for the aesthetics of it. It's what, there's a lack of supply of water. I want to conserve water, and I want the community to look nice. So, how do I go about doing this? And a lot of times the first thing people say is, oh, well, you need a zero-scape. But there's other things you can do, being selective with your plant material that has low water requirements. And then some things you can do with your irrigation system in terms of monitoring and soil moisture probes and just other things that can help dial back your water expense. In my opinion, and I'm not a big zero-scaper kind of guy, but in my opinion, the whole idea of that is to conserve a limited supply of water. And so I would just focus on that and create some type of hybrid environment.
And this is kind of a follow-up question. Answer it along those lines of conservation. Are any of you aware of conservation rebates? And I suppose this could mean at a federal or state level. I know of some for residential, but I'm not sure if they apply to commercial or communities.
Jesus, I'm not aware of any of that. Maybe the guys at Earth Care may know some more about that. I don't.
I'm not aware of anything as well.
That'd be something to look into with at least in Houston Public Works, TCEQ, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. I know they had a program in Austin. I think that expired a couple of years ago. Again, that was for residential use. I'm not sure how that would apply to commercial or HOAs. That's a good question, something to look into.
Yeah, I do know that. It's generally not the case with HOA communities, but when you're in the city and you're on city water, if you can get a dedicated irrigation meter, okay, there's a little expense in installing a dedicated irrigation water meter, but when you do that, you don't have to pay for the sewer portion of the water. You're just paying, your typical water bill now, you're paying for the water you use, and then you're paying for it again for sewer. Whereas if it's a meter that was dedicated to irrigation, you're just paying for the water you use and not the sewer portion of it. So that's one cost, saving technique, but I think generally these communities have dedicated meters.
Two more questions, and this is kind of a combo. I think it speaks to the relationship between HOAs and their landscapers. This says thoughts on properly scoping contracts and keeping landscapers accountable to the contract scope. And there's a little bit more in there about irrigation reports, and I think this speaks to the communication and relationship that are built between landscapers and the managers or board members. So if you can touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll start, and then Earth Care they can follow up. For me, if you have to hold your landscaper accountable constantly, then the best solution is that you need to change. And there are, you guys see the list of landscapers that participate in the Greater Houston Community Association. There's some great companies in there. So there's definitely no shortage of landscape companies, but what we try to do is, we have a dedicated account manager. They only manage a book of work that's so big. We don't throw too much work at them, so that you have a small company feel, and that account manager is responsible for everything that goes into that contract, and they should be communicating, sending emails, offering you the option to select your color. We send over site visit reports, quality inspections, and different things like that. So I think that for me, we want the business, we care about the business, and it's my responsibility as a business owner and a professional contractor to make sure that, I'm not just selling a bill of goods, and I'm following through with what we said we're going to do. And if we're not, then, hold us accountable. It certainly shouldn't be a battle. and ask for references.
Earth Care, you have any follow up on that?
Yeah, just to add to TechScape, depending on the size of the property and the manager, we schedule monthly drives, okay? And then out of the monthly drives, there's weekly inspections, so we can hold everybody accountable the whole way down. We have staff that we've had forever, that we work well together as a family-owned company. And we keep on schedule with everything. We have different departments for each different aspect of the landscape. And seasonal color, you know, that's the fun part about landscaping. You know, it's the curb appeal and it makes you smile. So, you know, just staying on schedule with your inspections and working well with your account service manager and your supervisors.
I'll give this one to Earth Care in 30 seconds. Is there an advantage to liquid fertilizer over granular?
Liquid fertilizer tends to work a lot faster than granular, while granular tends to break down slower. That's the big difference. Yes, there is a difference between liquid and granular.
This
Is there a difference in price?
In price, in price, it's generally about the same. It's not really much difference. I mean, it might vary just a bit. But both are very effective, both methods. Just the liquid fertilizer tends to work a lot faster than the granular.
This one's more of a facetious comment. How do I get my neighbor to stop blowing leaves in my yard? I can answer that one. You just, kind of give him one of these. But actually, brings up a kind of a good question. And Brant, I'll ask this to you. During the fall, when leaves do fall, is it best to mulch your leaves into the lawn or rake them up? Any thoughts on that?
Well, it depends how many there are. There's some instances where we have a community that has thousands of Bradford pears. And I mean, it's just a disaster every fall. And you just can't, it's too much to mulch. But generally, I prefer, we have mulch kits on our mowers. It's important to return those nutrients to the soil to create, a healthy environment for your turf. So we prefer mulching, clippings, and a moderate amount of leaves back into the soil and return that organic matter to the soil. Of course, over the course of time, you'll need to dethatch and do some other things, but bagging leaves and clippings and stuff is kind of a, in the commercial industry, I think that it's not a wide common practice. So yes, for mulching.
Well, that's all the questions we have. I think we went over a little bit. So we, again, thank you both for putting this all together, answering questions. There's a lot that goes into this. I know we've had several calls. And so I really, really appreciate your support and the information you're giving to our members. This has been, I think, invaluable. It's the 10th one we've done, and we'll continue to do a few more. So right now, let me get to the fun part, even more fun part of gift cards. So, see here, and I hope I don't butcher some of these names. And I know Amy, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. If you're still on the call, Amy Hostetter with Meyerland. Are you on the
I am.
All right. Amy, did I pronounce your last name okay?
Hochstetter. You're close.
Hochstetter. Okay.
Yay.
Congratulations.
Thank
You
you.
got a $50 gift card coming your way. The next one, and these are selected randomly, by the way, Howard with PMG Houston. Ashley, are you on the call? Let me look at my list here, participants. I don't believe she is. Going once, going twice. Is she coming in? No. Okay, we're moving on to the next one. Joyce. Again, I apologize. Joyce, are you on the call? Sterling. She is not. Going once, going twice. All righty. Next one, Kyle D'Souza. Kyle, are you on the call? I guess he logged off. Okay. Sean Morgan.
I'm here.
You're here, Sean. Congrats. You've got $50 coming your way. And Sean is with Remington Ranch. Yamil Torres with Lancaster.
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Yamil, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for sticking around. So we've got, that's 1, 2, 3. We've got one more. And this is, I apologize, Smita Parikh with Sienna. Are you still on the call? I know she submitted some questions. Smita with Parikh with Sienna. Oh, all right. Well, there it goes. And Chelsea Storms. Next up. Chelsea, good to see you. Congratulations. $50 gift card coming your way. So that takes up all 4. Again, appreciate your time. We will coordinate those with the winners.
Thank you.
Quick plug. Next week, we have our virtual legal seminar. It's the first time we're doing anything like that. It's a long day. It's a 5-hour presentation. I believe it's 5 hours of CEUs. And we've got a $15 Grubhub gift card. We've got a guest speaker, Dawn Bauman with CAI National, Government Relations Director. She's coming to speak during the lunch hour. So check out our website, caihouston.org, and sign up if you can. With that being said, I will end the webinar, and everyone have a great day. Have a great rest of your week.